Good evening and welcome to the Friday night edition of Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth. Of prime interest tonight, upon further review, the conservative publication National Review devotes all of its new issue to defeating Donald Trump, calling him a menace to conservatism. The Donald doesn't hesitate in responding, disparaging National Review and saying the venerable magazine is in its death throes.
Look, the National Review is a dying paper. Its circulation's way down. Not very many people read it anymore. I mean, people don't even think about the National Review. So I guess they want to get a little publicity. But no, that's a dying paper. Really, I mean, it's pretty much. I got to tell you, Dave, it's pretty much of a dead paper.
For more on this story, we're pleased to be joined by David Bossie. David is the president of Citizens United and the Citizens United Foundation, and he Skypes in tonight from Washington, D.C. David, we really appreciate your time considering the weather tonight on Newsmax Prime. And from the blizzard there in D.C. to the storm erupting among conservatives, now the Republican National Committee has dumped National Review as a debate partner for NR's attempt to get viewers to dump Trump in 2016. Are both of these stories as shocking to you as they are to some of us?
Well, I think the only story that'll get bigger attention in the presidential politics this weekend is the snow. We're going to get a lot of it here in Washington, D.C., something we haven't seen in a few years. So it's going to dominate the news. But look, the presidential politics, this is what we do here. I'm excited about this race. I'm excited that it is two anti-establishment change agents going at it for the nomination, Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. The conservative movement could do a lot worse.
Well, it is curious to see National Review do this type of issue at this particular time. Here's what editor Rich Lowry has to say, quoting now, "This issue of National Review will bring together voices from across the right to warn against the siren song of Donald Trump. These contributors have many differences of opinion among themselves, but all agree that Trump is not a conservative. He is a mistake for the Republican Party, and he is the wrong man to pick up the pieces after the wreckage of the Obama years." Now, David, I take you back. You and I both have long memories. 6 years ago, there was a certain conservative running for the U.S. Senate as an insurgent. National Review stuck with the so-called Washington insider Maverick. Why this antipathy toward Donald Trump?
You know, JD, that's a great question. I hadn't really remembered that. Obviously, I knew it. Look, it is the conservative movement is nervous about Donald Trump, and rightly so. Donald Trump talks a good talk, but he has never had to put up with Washington, the way Washington works, and how to get whatever his policies are going to be and his initiatives are going to be, if elected, through the Congress and into law. So Ted Cruz is somebody who the conservative movement looks at and says he's a true change agent. He is someone who has come here to Washington and has brought a wrecking ball to this city. And I think that the conservative movement, the activists out there across the country, are truly split between the two because they don't understand that Trump's inexperience in legislation may translate to things that they don't want. His deal-making abilities, somebody who is a self-professed deal-maker, conservative movement leaders look at that and says, well, maybe he's willing to do something in return for support on something he wants that maybe other politicians, including especially Ted Cruz, wouldn't do. So I think there's a lot of hemming and hawing about Donald Trump. I look at Donald Trump and I see a guy who wants to change how Washington does business. I look at Ted Cruz and I say, he's somebody who's come here and put his money where his mouth is. For the last several years, he's been the biggest thorn in the establishment side that there is in Washington. So I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm very happy that we're not talking about Jeb Bush versus Donald Trump or Jeb Bush versus Ted Cruz. That's usually how it ends up. every 4 years, and the conservative movement loses.
And on that note, let me go back because they're kind of mixed signals. A report yesterday in the Washington Post that the establishment was warming to Trump. Rush Limbaugh on the radio yesterday had something to say about so-called GOP insiders who apparently were warming to the Donald because of, dare we say, their intense dislike for Ted Cruz.
They clearly think that they can make deals with Trump. They get Trump, they look down the road and they see Trump as president. They think they'll be able to go to Trump and make deals and agree with the Democrats and come up with compromises and so forth. But they are aware that no such deal making that damages the country will ever occur with Ted Cruz. And so they are telegraphing their fears, letting it be known exactly where they come down on all this.
David, 30 seconds. Do you agree with Rush?
Look, I think Rush is hitting it on the head. I think that there are people out there who are afraid, desperately afraid, including some of his Senate colleagues who are part of that club, who don't want to see Washington change, who are afraid that Ted Cruz will be the change agent in the White House that he is in the Senate, and that scares a lot of people. And that makes me happy.
All right. It's a nice problem to have, is it not? David Bossie, we hope you have few problems battling the blizzard. We really thank you for your time here tonight on Newsmax Prime.